right, welcome to Access Sportsnet Lakers. I'm Mike Trudell, not Ali or Geeter, as you can see, but we do have stalwarts Mike Bresnahan and James Worthy, kind enough to be with us. Gentlemen, the offseason has begun.
Yeah, it has begun, reflecting back on the season, and that's what we're here to do today. So, yeah, it's all good. It was overall a good season.
Yep.
From where they were last year to what JJ and his coaching staff was able to, get them to buy into. They became a defensive team in the latter part of the season, and it's just unfortunately that injuries got in the way.
Trudeau, I appreciate you saying stalwarts plural, but we know it's only one stalwart, and he's right here to my left. James, usually you say working in July, but now it's working in May in the first off-season Access Sportsnet show.
We're looking forward to getting all of your opinions and takes out, guys, as we get going with the show. And we're going to get started with a look back at the season. Big Game just hinted at some of it here, but 53-29, back-to-back 50-win seasons for J.J. Redick. Pretty impressive. First time we've seen that since Phil. Now, the offensive and defensive rating, we could get into this a little bit. I think that can be overrated in the modern NBA. We know that the Lakers started the season without LeBron, without Marcus Smart, and that led to a lot of the rating. But as James said, defense got a lot better after the All-Star break, was excellent against Houston, and actually pretty good against OKC, too, to be honest. Now, Luka, Reaves, and LeBron here, this might be the stat of the season, though, right? 29 games. That's it together, gentlemen.
Not enough.
And in related news, right, that's when you're not going to beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, the defending champions, if you're not healthy. I don't think any team could have their best player, especially, out. It really, any season in NBA history, James Worthy, right? You're not winning if your best player is going to be out.
You're not winning if your best player is out. You're not winning if certain role players are out. It's just certain things that affect, the game that coaches have to deal with. And I just don't think the Lakers had the beef, or the depth to keep up with an Oklahoma team. Oklahoma's a machine. I got to see them play up close. I got to see San Antonio play in person and Oklahoma. And it reminded me of teams of the past, a Laker team with Kobe and Shaq. You just knew you weren't going to beat them. San Antonio when they were dunking, they were just powerful, and you knew they could turn it on at any time. But I just don't think the Lakers had arrived it yet. They started to compete in that direction, which was a good sign, but they got a few pieces to fill.
Wouldn't it be something if April 2nd never happened? That's when you lose to OKC by a lot of points in the regular season, and Luka and Austin go down with injuries. And that was a day where, in my mind, the Lakers season could have ended.
Yeah.
And give them a lot of credit for saying, no. We're going to go without Luka the entire playoffs, and they are for almost the entire first round against Houston before he came back and helped save the day. I just love that first-round series, that win against Houston. If that hadn't happened, then it's a little bit more of a somber offseason. But, hey, as you were alluding to, this OKC team is ridiculous. And they were without their second-best player, Jalen Williams. They still swept the Lakers. Yeah, I still say he's the second-best, a little bit over Chet, but it's probably pretty close. And just the way that team played, there's no shame in losing to them. Had the Lakers had the full complement of players, including Luka, and gotten swept the way they did, then maybe it's a different feeling during the offseason.
So I do think that it says something about the Lakers roster and kind of where they're at, that they were still able to be in the Final 8, even without Luka. So then we can all do some of the math, and we think, all right, well, you put a top 4 MVP candidate into that mix. And, James, to your point, you still probably need a few more bodies of roster depth to get to where OKC and San Antonio are at. But that's what the Lakers are going to try to do this offseason. So then the question is, assuming, and maybe they don't get everybody that they need this specific offseason, but including next year's trade deadline, how close then can they be, considering that maybe the best way to beat a team like that is to have one of those top 4 guys? Like, that is the thing that you need the most, the guy that can still find a way to score to get his team a good shot against the best.
Yeah, without question. And I think the Lakers, with Luka on the floor and Austin Reaves on the floor, we're not sure what LeBron's situation is going to be, but they were starting to show signs that they could, find shots. They could find shots for Jake LaRavia. They could find shots for, Marcus Smart from time to time. God knows they were looking for Rui. So they were trying, to find spots where they could score. But I think they, giving up all those turnovers, that's something they cannot do. give enough offensive rebounds. You play 24 seconds of good defense, give up an offensive rebound, then you got to play 14 seconds more. Those are the pieces that they got to figure out. 29 games of those three guys together. That's not enough.
That's crazy. That's a third of the season.
And as we saw, when they got healthy again, you started to see that the coaching staff had something they could project, they could work with, and it started to work. But they still need, they need a big that can, manage things inside and give them a little bit more beef so that they're not dominating in that area. Maybe a 3 and D. Mm-hmm. You look at Minnesota, you look at all the San Antonio. Those guys they have the length, mm-hmm. They're strong, and they all can score, and they don't really need to call plays. They just play the game. We have players like that too, but we really gotta harness that and find a way to keep that consistent night after, so we can compete with San Antonio, so we can compete with Oklahoma and Detroit and some of the upper echelon teams.
Yeah, if nothing else, James, we'll always have March. 15-2, a ton of games and not a lot of time, Mike. I thought the Lakers just, absolute buzzsaw, and they emerged unscathed. They emerged better for it. Yeah, that one weird loss to Boston, and I feel like that really kind of turned the season around. It's like, no, we're not going to allow ourselves to be out physical. They had a pretty pathetic, 89 points against the Celtics in that game. And I think I worked that game with you here, James. We're both just kind of like, what happened there? Give the Lakers a huge amount of bonus points here because they said, we felt it too. We don't want to get out physical. The week later, they took the hurt to a New York Knicks team that, as we're seeing right now in the playoffs, is pretty good. So that month is just such a microcosm of what this team could have been. And then 2 days into April, as I mentioned, you lose Luka, you lose Austin Reaves, you lose badly to OKC, and it was tough from then on, except for that first-round playoff series. Good recovery.
All right, and I do think that, Laker fans, while, again, are never going to be satisfied with anything less than a championship, but they did appreciate they went down swinging. Right? Mm-hmm. There was no quit in that team. They were resilient, and now we'll see what they can do in the offseason. All right, well, on Tuesday, J.J. Redick and Rob Pelinka addressed the media after the season-ending loss to OKC. Both spoke about where the team goes from here, including the status of 2 big-name potential free agents.
Whether you play 8, 9, whether you play 11, 12, you need to have depth, and that depth typically comes in sort of the roster spots 10 through 15. And whether that's internal development, draft, trade, free agency, whatever it is, we need to build depth beyond just an 8 or 9 man rotation. You look at OKC's roster, you look at San Antonio's roster, those guys, they have 13 high-level rotation players minimum. That's a luxury to have in the NBA, and it's one of the reasons those teams are really good.
LeBron James and Austin Reaves. Do you want both those guys back on the team next year?
In terms of LeBron, we probably haven't seen a player that has honored the game to the extent that he's honored the game. He's given so much to his teammates, to this organization, and the thing we want to do more than anything else is honor him back. And I think the first order of business there is allowing him to spend the time he needs to decide what his next step are. Does he want to play another year in the NBA? And that'll be, as he said to you guys last night, family time, I think time with his inner circle. And we just want to honor that for him. Of course, any team, including ours, would love to have LeBron James on their roster. That's a blessing in itself, just with what he does. Austin, he started his journey here as a Laker and has made it very clear to us that he wants his journey to continue as a Laker. And we feel the same way. We want his odyssey to continue to unfold in the purple and gold. As you know, Dave, there's rules and timing to all of that, but I think both sides have made it abundantly clear that we want to work something out where he continues his prolific career here.
All right, lots to digest there. And, of course, you heard the thoughts on LeBron and Austin Reaves, and some of that is unknown, but we can go ahead and look at and kind of project, all right, well, what do things look like this summer, depending on where they go with that. What's the top takeaway? Where do you start from after you hear that?
Yeah, I mean, Rob, talking about LeBron, that's got to be where you start. I mean, the way LeBron finished the season, obviously clearly the best player on the court in the Houston playoff series, James, and the fact that Rob's saying, yeah, hey, any team would be happy to have him, as would we. We'd feel blessed if he was back. He used the word blessed. And he wanted LeBron to recalibrate as he said. And James, I look for LeBron to let the Lakers know in about 6 weeks. You know, the draft is June 23rd. I don't think he has to let them know before the draft. The Lakers do have the 25th pick, but shortly after that is free agency. So, you know, I think he'll probably give the Lakers a sneak peek to whether he's coming back or not. And then the negotiations begin. Free agency, June 30th. It's been that way for a few years now. So he's got, like I said, about 6 weeks to really dwell on it. He can conclude tomorrow if he wants, if he gets all his meetings done, but no need to rush, especially with the season just ending a few short days ago.
Yeah, James, it's an interesting situation, first of all, because nobody has ever been close to this good for this long. And so when the Lakers got LeBron, there's no way you could have looked at the 26-27 season and tried to figure out whether it's financially, roster-wise, who has the basketball, how do you build around that, like all those things that go into a roster building, and then also just kind of setting of a team. How do you set that? How do you kind of figure that out?
It's not easy. I know that, but I know before LeBron came here, we were nothing. We used to sit at this desk and we would not make the playoffs.
It's hard, right?
We got LeBron, we made the playoffs, won a championship. So I think you have to set the table with that, knowing that he is still, Luka is the future. There's no question. But LeBron, what he's been able to do as a leader and a winner, and I don't know how many surgeries has he had. Not many. Has he had any? So everybody else has had injuries, major injuries, and he's had nagging injuries, but nothing that's put him under the knife. That's a tribute to the way he's worked out, how he takes the game, how he shows up. He still has it, guys. And I'm not saying it's not luck either. It's skill and it's preparation and it's discipline. He still has it. He has it up there, and it's it's just no one has had it at that age.
Yeah. What about Reaves?
Yeah. I mean, he's got to be number two takeaway, and Rob just kind of said it all in the sound bites we just listened to, and I love when he used the word Odyssey. It started making me think of like the Iliad and the Aeneid and all those great books we read back in high school.
Odyssey's coming out this summer, by the way.
There you go. Or we're supposed to read in high school. I'm not sure I got through all those, James, but I like how Rob said, look, it's kind of a two-way street, and it sounds like it's a pretty good street for the Lakers. I mean, the fact that Rob is saying, we've talked to him, he definitely wants to come back. That's helpful to hear if you're a Laker fan, because you need interest, on the player's side, since he's unrestricted, he gets to control what he wants to do. And then Rob's saying, we want his Odyssey, there it is again, to continue to unfold in the purple and gold. I think Austin's back. Okay, look, he's going to get about $50 million a year or so, give or take a few million here and there. And James, only a couple teams have that kind of cap space. You're looking at Brooklyn. They've been bad for so long that I doubt he's going to, kind of give them a second thought. Chicago, I like that city personally, but I just don't know if he would want to restart there. That is a complete rebuild. A lot of moving parts there, a lot of trades this past season, a lot of injuries. So looking at salary cap-wise, I just feel like he's a good fit for the Lakers. I think he's back.
I mean, so the salary is one conversation, James, and look, the player should always want to get as much as they can get. The team, to some extent, should always want to try and get a number that's maybe slightly lower than the max they can, so that they can use money for the rest of the roster. There's a balance there. That's what the agents and the GMs negotiate. But just basketball fit-wise, I think it's been pretty clear, and Luka's made this clear, like, he wants to play with Austin Reaves. He likes what he does on the court. I think it's a little bit unfair to judge Austin against the teeth of the OKC defense without Luka.
Yeah.
And yet, right, you can judge it some, because that's also what that position requires. So where do you sit overall? You've seen it all. You've seen Austin start right from the undrafted rookie free agent to making the team to getting better every year to being on his way to an all-star game before he got hurt in January.
Undrafted. No one took a chance on him. He found a home with the Lakers. That's huge for him. He found a home here. To have Luka say, I want to play with this guy, that's strong. That's the future of the Lakers, those two, and what he does on the court to relieve some of the pressure from Luka is amazing. He also joined a country club out here, so he's golfing.
You're gonna run into him on the links, aren't you?
This is a winning organization. I think he understands that. So to go somewhere else that's not maybe there yet. Chicago's won, but they're not the Chicago that, you know, we've seen in the past. I think he likes it here. I think he likes building around Luka because he knows that the Lakers are going to try to do everything they can to build around that player and himself to give them a chance to win. New ownership. Dodgers coming in. He understands that they have a different approach to analytics and how they look at the game and everything. So I think he found a home here, and I think he's here to stay for a little bit.
All right, well, we're going to head to break, and when we return, we'll look forward to what's Luka magic. Let's take a look at the season for Doncic, and these numbers certainly pop. All right, 33.5 points, nearly 50% from the field overall. The threes started out a little bit slow from three, got hot after the All-Star break. You knew the rebounds and assists were going to be there as well. And then, of course, Brez mentioned earlier in the show, April 2nd is when he goes out with a hamstring strain. Unfortunately, it was a grade 2, and that forced him to miss more time, certainly, than he wanted to. Here's Luka reflecting on his season-ending injury.
It's very frustrating. I know some people wanted me back, but obviously I wasn't close to clearing. You know, there was some stuff in the media that went out that wasn't true. Nobody of those people, you know, saw my MRIs, no nothing, so it wasn't really true. If I could be out there, I would be 100%. Everybody in that room knows that. But, you know, it's been very tough. Like I said, this is the best time to play basketball. I was sad not to be able to help my team. So, looking to the offseason, you know, obviously I'm still doing recovery, so that's the first thing.
Luka, I'm sure you didn't want to be thinking about some of this stuff now, but there are a lot of free agents on this team. The team has cap space. There are trades potentially that can be made. I'm just kind of curious, like, what's your vision for the future of this organization in terms of players, and what was it like to play with Austin and LeBron this season?
Honestly, I think this season, you know, obviously didn't end how we wanted. But I feel like the last push we made, you know, in the end of the regular season, we thought that we can compete for championship. I think we had a great team. We had great chemistry, and obviously playing with AR and Bron was an unbelievable experience. They're two great players, and it was really fun to share a court with them.
Luka, when you signed your extension last summer, you helped to recruit Marcus and DA. Will you be trying to make sure you recruit LeBron, Austin, DA, and Marcus again this summer?
We'll see. Can't tell you nothing.
Luka, looking back at that March, how important was that run? You know, I think you guys had 16-2 record over 18 games. How important was that to kind of see this team clicking on all cylinders for you in your second year in the organization?
It was pretty amazing. I think the feeling in the locker room was very good. I think every time we stepped on the court, you know, everybody was fighting, and most importantly, everybody was having fun. So I think that run we made was pretty special. You know, obviously, I think me and AR got injured in the worst moments, so, you know, that's a little bit of bad luck.
Luka, last year when we sat here and had the same type of conversation with you, you had said that you had a lot to unpack, a lot you needed to figure out about everything with the trade. I'm just curious, kind of, what's your sense for the organization in general right now, having had a full season with it, and what have you enjoyed about being a Laker?
I feel very comfortable. You know, I like living here. I like playing for the Lakers. It's one of the best organizations in the world. So just being a Laker, it means a lot to me. And, you know, like I said, I feel very good here. So there's nothing else to add to that.
All right, so there's Luka reflecting on his injury and kind of looking back at the season. And, you know, I remember just being at the playoff games and, you know, kind of walking by the bench and just seeing Luka there. Like, on the one hand, proud of his teammates, right, impressed, like trying to get engaged, and then also just looking devastated. And, I mean, big game, you'd be able to speak to this much better, of course, than Brez and I, but to know what you can do, to know that the team needs what only you can do, right, and to not be able to get out there, it's a tough thing.
It's devastating, you know. I was just starting to gel my rookie year with Magic and Kareem and Coop, and I broke my leg. And it's April. I'm not sure we would have beat the Philadelphia 76ers that year. They were really good that year. But, yeah, it's devastating to sit there, especially Luka, who has played in the finals before. He's been in the finals. He's tasted it. He was a distant candidate for MVP this year. And to not be there to do what he does. He's an entertainer, too, as far as an athlete. But to not be there for his teammates. I mean, you can tell he's a great teammate. He's bought everybody bikes. He's present. And he gets along with Austin Reaves really well, and just about everybody. To be sitting there looking at Oklahoma, you know, kicking your ass pretty much, knowing that you can have an impact, it's tough. So we'll see how that impacts your summer, getting back in shape and getting ready again.
Yeah, and James, there was a shot. National TV always loves showing an injured player on the bench towards the end of that particular player's team's playoff run. And there was a shot there in the fourth quarter, True, where it's like he looked kind of bummed. You know, it might have been right when he figured out that this is probably the end. You could see, I don't read minds, but you could kind of see maybe him going through the process of, you know, he played really well in the series, played hard in the series, and played well and really hard in Game 4, and almost won it, obviously. And you could just see him. I'm going to do the math for him. You know, how about the 33 points that he scored per game, and the 8 rebounds and the 8 assists that he was contributing every game? I mean, that's pretty good math right there. Yeah. That'll get you over the hump in Game 4 for sure, and make those first 3 games that much more competitive too. Yeah. So, yeah, he was missed. There's no doubt about it. You can sense his sadness. That's a little too strong. His disappointment in that press conference.
I think what he saw, in order to beat a team like Oklahoma, if you can steal a game and put just I don't know if that puts pressure on it, but if you can steal a game, and the Lakers were close, leading, but it just didn't have enough gas in the tank. And that's what I think he was thinking. If we could just steal a game, then we change the psyche of how Oklahoma plays now. Then you have a possibility to maybe upset them, but, you know, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Just quickly, James, to follow up. So you broke your leg, right? You're sitting there. Nobody gets to the spots that you guys were in without incredibly hard work, but does it give you a little extra boost that offseason?
No question.
After?
No question. I mean, mine was a total accident. You know, Luke was probably thinking, I'm going to work out harder now. I'm going to get in better shape so my body's stronger, so that when these little things happen, maybe I can endure them and not, you know, have, you know, a grade 2. So, yeah, it definitely motivates you. He's looking at Oklahoma. He's looking at the swag. He's looking at how they're able to get away with fouls and how we're not getting the calls. So you take all that in. He's a competitor, and that always is part of your formula when you're trying to make a comeback.
His month of March was ridiculous. And what Luka needed to be a serious top 3, top 4 candidate for MVP was the Lakers to put some wins together. And what did they do? You know, when that month started, True, they were kind of getting close to like
the 6th seed.
6, maybe even 7th, which they want no part of. But he really made sure that they were going to stay in that top 4. And they even got to 3, I believe, at the end of March.
Yeah.
And then you have April 2nd. I'm going to stop mentioning it. And yeah, he was the reason why March was as good as it was, and that was a joy to watch. I mean, Mike, you were at all those games, and a lot of road games too.
Yep.
When you look at the schedule ahead of time, we started talking about in January. Like, okay, you got the All-Star break coming up, and then you got a few games after that in February, and then boom, March hits, and you know, that man right there was the reason why March wasn't a big deal at all, and it set them up for some really good momentum going into the playoffs until everybody started getting hurt.
All right, so big summer ahead for Luka, and we'll see how the roster takes shape in many ways for the league's all-time leading scorer as we take a look at his regular season and playoff production. Now, it's just so hard to put these numbers into context because nobody in NBA history had done this at year like 18 for them. So in other words, LeBron, age 41, right? If you put these numbers in, you will not get averages that meet those for a player who is 35 or older. So it's
amazing.
And look, Brez, if I had to actually guess on a player, and you gave me all the information, so I knew their work ethic, I knew their level of intelligence, I knew that the natural gifts that they were given. He might be my first pick in terms of who was going to be the one that lasted the longest, but to be able to actually live up to that, we all know how incredible it is, and it's just, again, there's no other context for it. You have to start to kind of look around the world of sports in other sports, and still, it's tough to find a comp.
You know what's funny? I covered Kobe for 12 years at the LA Times, the last 12 years of his career. And after a while, I'm like, I don't know what else I can write or what else anyone on the Lakers can say about him. So I realized I was starting to have to go to outside sources for fresh quotes on Kobe, you know, as a player, as a competitor, and things like that, James. And I feel like I'm at that spot with LeBron now. But that's, you know, to be frank, that's even crazier than Kobe, because Kobe, his last year was when he was 37, I want to say. Don't quote me. Mm-hmm. And LeBron is obviously past that by a few years now. And obviously LeBron never had that major injury that Kobe did, snapping the Achilles like he did in April of 2013. And James, I've run out of things to say. I mean, it's really, on the podcast we just had, by the way, you've got to watch it, James. You were the best dressed person ever on this podcast. I was going to say guest. It was amazing. I was going to say you're the best dressed guest, but you are much more than that. And, you know, on the podcast, I just remember saying that, you know, it's incredible what he does. We keep waiting for his stats to drop off, and one of these years he's going to show up and average 9 points and 6 rebounds and a few assists, and that just hasn't happened yet. And guys, I don't know if it's going to. I do think he's back for another year. That's my personal opinion, because he played so well. He's not like these guys who are in their mid to late 30s. Like you said, no one's ever had a season like this after their age 35 season. He just keeps churning out the numbers. It's crazy.
Well, Jay, you happen to play with a couple of the all-time greats, and you, of course, an all-time great yourself. But I'm thinking of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and how much he was able to elongate his production. And then, you know, again, even in his last couple of years, right, not quite at that level, right, of where LeBron is at this stage at 41?
I think 85, when he won MVP against the Celtics, might have been Kareem's like last year. We won in 87 and 88. Kareem was a big part of that. But I can remember Pat Riley coming to Magic first in 87. Then in 88 coming to me and said, hey, we have to make up for what Kareem can no longer give us, which was, you know, Kareem had the formula to longevity for a long time.
Right.
Yoga, the way his diet and his spirituality, the way he meditated, all that stuff. LeBron's formula is a totally different thing. I mean, Kobe had it, all those guys had it, and during that era, but he's taken it to another level. I've never known anybody to show up at the arena for a 7:30 game at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. That's nap time for most guys in my era. And, you know, but he has a different mentality. You know, his upbringing, I'm sure, had a lot to do with it. He's hungry. Didn't have his father, didn't have a college coach. He's just super hungry, and that continues to follow him. He's the best athlete in the world,
but
as far as I'm concerned.
One thing I was thinking of, and I kind of I hinted at this in one of the post-game locker rooms, but we've all been on a treadmill at some point, right? And when you keep pressing the button to go higher, at some point you just stop, because
you go lower.
It sucks to sprint. It's not fun. He doesn't seem to have that switch.
No.
That's the thing that's always great. In transition, he's running by the 23-year-olds still. And that, to me, yes, like the physical gifts are there, Brez, but the mental fortitude for him to still want to answer that bell, to still wake up, to still do all the rehab, that's part of what's remarkable.
Yeah, you know, the fact that he still wakes up every day and finds ways to challenge himself in the game, and that's incredible. I mean, shoot, I wonder how many players you could ask who retired in their 30s, maybe even in their late 20s, who said, playing at 41, what? No. You know, my knees would blow out. You know, there's no chance. And the fact that LeBron put up 20-plus points a game, had his typical 7 or 8 assists and rebounds, I mean, did stuff like that, you know, still could crank it up on defense, led the league in fast break points.
Amazing.
James, come on. He didn't play every game. You know, he missed, 15 or so, 20, I want to say, because he did miss the first month of the season. And true, as James was just talking about LeBron, I'm realizing I should have gone to him for some quotes on Kobe back in the day, because you could always fill up a notebook. You always have really good observations, especially on guys like LeBron and Kobe and the stars.
All right, let's take a look at, very well said by both of you, let's take a look at the Lakers free agents as they head into the offseason. And you can see this is a large one, right? Austin Reaves, the player option. Of course, many expect that he would opt out of that, as it is a number that he is certainly more than worth. And then you see the player options again at the bottom for Ayton and Smart. The other four gentlemen are all unrestricted. So a lot of decisions to come here. Reaves is maybe, and we've already talked about LeBron, so we talked about Reaves a little bit, but Luka has made it pretty clear, right? And we've seen this in various reporting, specifically about Austin Reaves and kind of the fit. And James, you alluded to this. You can just sort of see the way that they are together, the way that they play together as a strength. And I just wonder, as you look at the list, and since we talked about Austin and LeBron already, anything else amongst those guys stand out? And how do you kind of retain the players that you want, and then also maybe bring in some additional length and athleticism on the outside?
Yeah, Mike, this is going to be hard. I mean, Rob Pelinka talked about in his press conference the other day, and he brought up the fact that, okay, look at some teams that are really crushing it in the playoffs right now. San Antonio, OKC right away. Detroit starting to struggle a little bit in their conference semifinal against Cleveland. But those three teams, Rob brought up this point. He said, what did they have to do? They had to bottom out, you know? And the Lakers are going to have to kind of, they're not going to do that. It's not the Lakers' way. They did it unintentionally 10 years ago when they had back-to-back-to-back number 2 picks. But my long-winded point is they're going to try to bring back those two guys. I thought they played really well together. I think Austin, it seems like it's a pretty good vibe all around from the Lakers to him and back. But then filling in the rest of the roster, you know, Rob said we've got to thread the needle. And it starts with bringing a guy like AR back and then saying, okay, what about Rui? What about Luke Kennard? We gave up a second-round draft pick to make sure he was with us for the final part of the season. There's just going to be a lot of, put it this way, front office, very busy this offseason.
Well, James, I would almost contextualize it like this. So if you look at Dallas and the build they had with Luka when they get to the finals, right? It was him and Kyrie Irving, before that Jalen Brunson. So kind of like a second offensive option. You could easily envision slotting Austin Reaves into that spot. And then mostly just big, athletic, size, length, kind of wing type players around that. With what the Lakers have there, and you saw it on the list, some of those guys can fit that, some a little bit more specialization in terms of a shooting or something else. And how do you get more of some of those guys that it seems like would fit around Luka and Austin, and yet not let guys that are really, really good players that have proven things to you, Rui Hachimura at a longer length of time, Luke Kennard in a short period of time, right? How do you do both those things?
There's no thread for that needle. You know, that's a tough one.
Yeah.
Because in order to get something, you're going to have to give up something. The players you mentioned, I wouldn't want Rui. You know, I would want some of the players that are available. So it's going to be a tough one, man. I've never sat in that chair. I remember when Jerry West was GM back in the day, and he had just a big bulletin board on his wall where it was just like names of players that he had, you know, opportunity to get. So it's going to be interesting. I think, you know, you get to the point where you have players that are safe. You know, Austin, I believe, safe. Luka for sure. LeBron back. Everybody else, you might have to consider making a trade or doing something, because you got to give something to get something. So we don't know what that is yet. But the Lakers have. I mean, I like Marcus Smart, but he has a player option himself. Ayton, I can't see him not, you know, exercising his option. Luke Kennard, he helped us a lot.
Sure.
You know, I think it's going to be interesting to see how is there anything else out there that can replace our sharp shooter? I don't know. I don't think so.
Yeah, and
we'll see.
Yeah, and some of that depends on what if LeBron comes back, you know, what's that number? You know, he just finished making $53 million. If Austin Reaves is re-signed, what's that number? And we won't know that number. The NBA does this funny thing every year. They don't determine the max salaries for upcoming max potential players until the very end of June, because their financial year starts on July 1st. Or I'm boring myself with that bank talk right there. Bottom line, you know, the two guys at the bottom of that list, you mentioned DeAndre Ayton, his player options for about $8 million. I think he probably does exercise that. Marcus Smart, about $5.5 million. That's his player option for next season. You know, I assume the average salary, again, we won't know for another month and a half, is going to be about $15 million next season, maybe a little bit under. Is Marcus Smart happy making about $5.3 million next season? I hope he stays. Loved what he did, but that's a decision he'll have to make.
All right, and of course, several ways to improve a roster. You got the draft, you got free agency, and you have trades as well. And the Lakers do have most of their future picks, so those could be in play if they're going to try to get some upgrades on the roster. All right, we're headed to our first Lake Show throwback of the day. How about AD calling game against Yo app or wherever you get your favorite podcasts? All right, we hinted on this briefly, but Rui Hachimura, his postseason from a shooting perspective, ridiculous. You guys aware that he is currently the NBA's all-time leader in playoff three-point percentage? All-time, number one in history.
Bird and Dale Ellis and all those guys?
Over everybody. He is number one.
Dale Ellis.
10 straight playoff games shooting at least 50% or better. An absolute laser. Now, sure, a couple areas where he could improve the rebounding, but very solid big game. He had an excellent postseason.
Yeah, ever since he arrived, first got here, started working out with LeBron a little bit, started to get some good habits and confidence. And, he went from starter to going to the bench. I think that kind of, stymied him a little bit. But I think this year when he came off the bench, he accepted that role because he knew that was going to give him more volume shots and they would really be able to exercise his game a little bit more. I think he's a high commodity. And, I'd hate to see him leave, but I think, he's a player that other teams will be interested in for sure. He's on the upscale. I thought he had a great season. Yeah, he had some games where he did have 7, 8 rebounds. He'll get better at that because he's aware of it. But I thought Rui had an outstanding season for us this year.
Yeah, Rob made it really clear in his end-of-season press conference the other day. He wants Rui back. Rob went as far to say that I'm incredibly proud, that was his quote, of what Rui has done in the playoffs. Not just these playoffs, but in previous ones, too, since joining the Lakers right around the trade deadline a few years ago.
Good trade by Rob, by the way, to get Rui in from Washington.
Yeah, I mean, very, very big moves for sure. And Rui made about $18 million this year. Like I said earlier, the NBA average is going to be about $15 million next season. So what do the Lakers do? There's just so much number crunching to be done. First, you got to see what LeBron and AR, what they want to do and what those numbers will be. And then everything obviously kind of trickles down from that. And towards the end of June, before free agency, we're going to find out if Marcus Smart and DeAndre Ayton are going to opt in or decide to become unrestricted free agents of their own. So just a lot of moving parts really over the next month and a half.
Well, the Lakers have some really smart people in the front office on the not just the analytics, but the salary cap side. And you know that they'll have the multiple spreadsheets. Okay, if this player options into this, if this player takes this, what we're trying to get him for, and they'll make the best sense of that.